Welcome to the eighth episode of the Oracles. Yes, we are back once again with yet another episode. And as usual, I'm with the beautiful, the incredible, the superstar of the podcast, Z Mazibugo. Tonight, we have a very special guest. The first time I came across his music was on Twitter when I saw his video of the single The Golden Child 3. I went and listened to his EP from beginning to end and to new beginnings. And I just knew then that he is something truly special. He was born in Cameroon and then moved to Canada right before moving to Atlanta, Georgia, in the USA. Ladies and gentlemen, we present to you a future superstar. He's a 90s baby, but he just came a little late. The insane hype. Hey man, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. That was quite the introduction. It
Yeah. Yeah, I really had to work on that one. I really had to work on that one. Yeah, so
was good, man. It was good.
so I've got my beautiful host here with me, Z Mazibugo.
Yeah, that intro was actually nice. I felt like a superstar for a moment.
Yeah,
I
no,
know,
you
right?
really are. No, you really are. You really are the superstar. Now, Hype, please take us through the earlier days of your life. You were born in Cameroon, moved to Canada, and then to the US. How did all of that happen?
Yeah. So both of my parents are born from in Cameroon. They're both of Cameroonian, heritage, and
Yeah.
I was born in Cameroon. I was born in Cameroon. I lived in Cameroon up until about the age of 5 or 6 years old. And then from there, my dad was moving to Canada. So he took me with him when he was moving to Canada. So I lived in Canada for a while, for about another 5 or 6 years. So I spent most of my early childhood between Cameroon and Canada. So those were really, what my early childhood was like. There were times where I went back to Cameroon and then came back to Canada. But most of the time I was, either in Canada or Cameroon. And then so a lot of the experiences and the influences that I had early on, I think kind of started to shape my interest in music. As anywhere on the African continent, the people love music. We're very musical people,
Yeah.
so naturally it's something that you're going to grow up to love. Just growing up as an African. And so then when I moved to Canada, I got introduced to different cultures, more styles of music. I lived in Quebec, which is mainly the French speaking part of Canada.
Mm.
So I grew up bilingual for most of my life as well, speaking both English and French. And so, yeah, so there in Canada is where I really started to get, my introduction to hip hop and to, other styles of music, outside of just African music itself. And that's when I started to pick up an interest for it, but I hadn't really gotten into it yet that much. So it wasn't until the kind of towards the end of my stay in Canada around 2010 that I really started picking up an interest in wanting to write music and make music. That was around the time that Drake was becoming a big household name. And so, him being from Canada was a big deal at the time. So, I just remember a lot of people talking about him and, we're all getting into his music. And so he was one of the first hip hop artists that I really was introduced to. And then from there, that's kind of how I got into it. So a lot of my early childhood just kind of consisted of, being between those two places of, Canada and Cameroon, and just, being introduced to, different cultures, different parts of, each of those places, and just kind of forming my understanding of,
Yeah.
the world and the music and things like that. So that's a lot of what, my early childhood was like until 2010, when I moved to the US, officially moved to Georgia. And then in Georgia, that's when I really got my full on, introduction into hip hop, a lot of Southern hip hop, a lot of Southern artists. The culture of the South. I really started taking it in and absorbing it. At that time I
Yeah.
was, a teenager, so there's a lot of development going on. This when you kind of start to find yourself, things like that. So it was really when I moved to Georgia that I really say like I really started to really um, nurture that interest and starting to take it further, to really start to trying to become like an artist, So
Yeah.
that's a lot of how what my early days were like.
So before you moved to Canada, right, and got to
Hmm.
listen to Drake and be exposed to more music, you did mention that as Africans, we love music a lot. We have a lot of musical backgrounds. You
Yeah.
personally, do you come from a musical background at home, or is it just something that you picked up and you're walking your own path? This is something new in your family and you are starting with it.
Yeah, like no, nobody in my family is really like musical, like an artist. But like, any of us who grew up with like African moms, like they like to sing like,
Yeah.
the African gospel tunes on, in the
Mm.
morning when they're doing the cooking or the cleaning or whatever. So it's like and I even when I was growing up in Cameroon, I spent a lot of time in the village with my grandmother. So you're surrounded by when they're having the ceremonies and the different traditions. It's like there's always music involved, and so I grew up surrounded by it, but nobody in my family had like a musical background, like playing instruments or was doing music officially. But everybody in my family just we just love music. We somebody in the house is always singing, doing something like that, or playing music at any point in time. So it was something that I just I just grew up around music in general. But I think I'm really the first, person in my family to take on music as something that I want to do professionally. So from that aspect, I definitely am the first person that has picked it up the way that I have, and I'm trying to pursue it in a professional, in a professional manner.
Yeah, and then moving from Cameroon to Canada, and if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken, the main language in Cameroon is French, right?
So yeah, it depends which part of the country you're in.
Okay.
Um, but they had both the two national languages are English and French. So growing up in Cameroon, I was it also provided me with a bilingual background because depending on what part of the country you're in, the main spoken language can be English or French,
Yeah.
depending where you are. So for the most part, um, I grew up in the English parts, but I also spent some time, in the French speaking parts. I have family that speak French that, grew up in, what we call Francophone, Cameroon. So, that's the French part of Cameroon. So, just traveling between family and things like that. And even in school, they teach both English and French
Mm.
when you're going to school in Cameroon. So, it's just something that it's kind of just a part of the culture there, being bilingual, and a lot of people know how to speak both English and French.
Yeah, all right. Because my question was that I was leading to was
Mhm.
how easy or difficult was it to adapt from moving to Cameroon, even though you're very young? How
Yeah.
easy or difficult was it to adapt to from moving to Cameroon to Canada?
So it's almost like, so in Cameroon we speak more traditional French, French from France, and in Canada they have their own kind of version of French. So it's almost like somebody moving from a country where they speak the Queen's English and then moving to the United States. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of different
Wow.
there's a lot of different accents. When you come to the United States, there's a lot of different slang, that people use. So it's the same kind of thing moving to Canada. I remember the toughest part was getting used to the accents
yeah,
because I lived in Quebec. So they have their Quebecois accent, and it's kind of like it's very slick. They have their own slang, so it's like, and they almost talk fast, a little faster than what I was used to. So when I moved there, usually when somebody moves to that into Quebec, from what I remember, they put us in. It was kind of like a school for to kind of help people get accustomed to the area. So it's
Yeah.
like they put you in there. They walk you through learning French, and because I already knew French, I kind of moved through it
Yeah.
quicker. But it helped me understand like the accent better. So that was like the toughest part for me was understanding the accent because it felt like they were talking so fast I could only catch one word out of a
Mm.
sentence. So, but getting accustomed to it was once I got into the habit of it, and kind of you train your ear to get used to it. It was a very easy adjustment, because again it was a language that I was familiar with, and just having gone through that at a younger age as well. You kind of children pick up on things a little faster because that's the age where you're most open. You're most open
Yeah.
to things, and you're learning. You're just absorbing everything. So I wouldn't say it was a very hard transition as far as that. And then also, the part of Quebec that I lived in Montreal, it's a very culturally diverse area. So like, there's a lot of Jamaicans. There's a lot of you find a lot of Indians, a lot of Middle Eastern people. You find people from all over the world. It's culturally diverse, religiously diverse. So it wasn't. It was one of those things where you just kind of just you get in where you fit in. There's a lot of Africans. There's a lot of everybody. So there's like a really like a melting pot type of area. So it was like just kind of getting used to everything. Getting used to the area, getting used to the different people. So it was one of those things where you just kind of pick up as you go.
Yeah.
And you learn what you can.
Yeah.
But I would
And
say moving from Canada to United States,
Yeah.
now that was a whole different experience.
Yeah. Was that
That
one
was a
more
whole
difficult or was it a
yeah.
more exciting one?
Man, that was is both. It was more difficult and more exciting because especially moving from Canada and moving to the southern United States.
Yeah.
It's not like I went from like Canada and went to like because like Canada is close to like New York, it's
Oh,
close to like
Yeah.
Boston, so it's like. And when I was living in Canada, I have family in New York, so we used to go to New York all the time.
Mm.
But when I left Canada and we went to Georgia and went to the South, man, I thought the accents in Canada was something. The Southern accents were just so different. It was so
yeah.
different, man, and the culture was so different. Everything was different, and it was like I'm like my head is spinning. I'm trying to I'm trying to like
Felt
pick
like
up
a
everything.
culture shock.
Yeah, it was a culture shock, and it was, and that's why I say it was like both the most difficult, but also the most
Yeah.
exciting because it was like it was one of those things where again growing up in Cameroon, and a lot of other Africans will say this, there's um a lot of what we see about other black people in the world is
Mm.
through the media, and what you see about like the US and black people in the US, and it's like moving to the southern United States and getting to experience that culture firsthand. It was almost like it was nothing like what I thought it was going to be, but also everything like what I thought it was going to be at the same time.
Mm.
So but it's like Southern hospitality was a very real thing. Like people, you know, um, they were just so interested. Like, oh, you're from Canada. You grew up in Cameroon. Like, and they want to know everything about you, and you want to
Mhm.
know everything about them. It's like and so that's and really that part of it also kind of shaped my you know kind of shaped my interest in wanting to get into into the art of hip hop, and wanting to
Yeah.
be a hip hop artist as well. So it was like it's so much happening at once at that time, and I'm just like just becoming a teenager and everything. So those are what people usually would call like your formative years, and the
Yeah.
years that really shape you. So like it was an exciting experience, but it was also like okay, like those accents, like it took me so long to pick up on the southern accents and what people were saying. But it was fun, man. It was a fun time, and so it was definitely exciting. It was definitely exciting as well.
Could it also be what made you do hip hop as much as you do hip hop? Like now, like delving into the music, you
Hmm.
being there, did you focus more on the hip hop, seeing that everyone here is a part the hip hop, or was it something else?
No, it definitely did. I think that what it did for me is it kind of took me beyond just the music, and it really took me into the
Yeah.
culture of it. Like really took me into the culture of the people that the music comes from, and
Mhm.
it made me just want to learn more about the culture and learn more about the history of it. And um it's like it's kind of if you don't really understand the music beyond just the music, if you
Mhm.
don't really understand the culture, then it's kind of hard to um understand the small nuances that are in the music, right? Like, the way that, rappers might say certain things, or, some of the times when they make certain references to certain things, it's like if you don't understand the culture of the people, you're completely going to miss it. So it's like
Yeah.
it was so interesting to me because, like I said, I had started getting into hip hop because, like Drake was becoming a big thing. And so like a lot of
Mhm.
people in Canada is like, oh, Drake, this and the third. But then when I moved to the South, um, I started getting more into artists like Lil Wayne, who is
Mhm.
a really big Southern artist, one of the biggest hip hop artists ever. And he was like my first favorite rapper. And so just being in that environment, in that culture, I think that it gave me a little bit more of an appreciation for the music and for the culture, and it really helped me be able to develop into the kind of artist that I wanted to be, because
Yeah.
I understood that it goes just beyond the music. There's a whole culture behind it. There's a whole movement behind this thing we call hip hop, that we call rap. So yeah, that experience definitely made me want to get into it even more. And like one thing that I remember is, when I started school in Georgia, they used to do freestyles at lunch. And
Mhm.
so I was the new kid, and they would ask me to freestyle and rap. And at the time, I wasn't all that good. They were like, "Do you rap?" I was like, "No, no, no." And they still asked me to rap,
Yeah.
and so like it just being in those kind of things, like it just made me understand the whole culture of it, and it was just fun, and just made me want to do it even more. So it definitely was a big part of why I got into it so deeply.
And speaking about the culture and the music element coming from Atlanta, how big has the influence been from bigger artists like Outkast and Ludacris? And I mean, just talking in terms of the sound that comes from Atlanta, how big is the culture there?
Yeah, so when I was living in Georgia, I actually lived about an hour and a half south of Atlanta, in a smaller town called Milledgeville, which is where I grew up. Um, but of course, Atlanta is the biggest city in Georgia. That's where a lot of people, that's the where kind of the biggest, most common reference they have to Georgia. Um, and I would say the influence is, at first, the influence from the actual music scene in Atlanta for me wasn't that big. It kind of came from other places at first. I kind of got into it a little later. Like I didn't really start listening to like Outkast until later on, almost like when I was in college. But earlier, like some of my other influences, like I mentioned, like Lil Wayne and like other artists like that, those were some of my biggest influences. So really, I would say like I was listening to like a lot of Atlanta artists at the time though, like Future. Future was really big at the time. I was listening to Future when Young Thug came out. I was listening to that. So like I was keeping up with that. But as far as like my influences from Atlanta, I would say that the actual influence is, as far as music wise, I would say is not as big. I think that what really influenced me is just like I said, kind of like just the culture itself. Like a lot of people, we talk about how Atlanta has a really good culture of, how artists relate to each other, in the Atlanta music scene. So it's
Yeah.
like they're always looking to help each other out and put each other on, and just the culture that comes with that. I think influenced me more than the music itself, because like a lot of people when they listen to my music, they think I'm from New York or something like that,
Yeah.
and so my actual like the people who influence me as far as like how I make my music are not as much from the South. Like Outkast definitely has an influence on me, and I'm definitely like a big Ludacris fan. Definitely a big fan of Goody Mob. I'm a big fan of Young Thug, Future, all of them. Um, but I think that the music itself hadn't really, and even still to this day, I wouldn't say has influenced me that much outside of like a handful of artists like Lil Wayne and a few others, who I think were really instrumental to my development as an artist. But I don't know if the music itself really influenced me that much, but definitely
Mhm.
like the environment and the culture definitely did. Like I used to go up to Atlanta and do like open mics, do performances, um, because they just it's a big thing there. So there's always opportunities to be able to to do something, to be somewhere, to meet somebody important. So definitely like that culture and just the way they embrace their music
Yeah.
scene, that definitely had a big impact on me, and I think it definitely gave me and created a lot of opportunities for me to be able to do music the way that I wanted to do music as well.
Yeah. I hear you speaking about how the culture and the environment influenced the music that you're making or influenced you,
Hmm.
right? And you speaking of them being around, I wouldn't call them young, but then it's mostly young people, like young thugs, futures and whatnot. And their music is new school, if I can call it that. But now
Yeah,
your music gives me a sort of like some nostalgic feeling, like so much of old school music or old school hip hop.
yeah,
And it makes me wonder, where do you get it from? Because when I listen to you, it sounds like I'm listening to a person who used to rap back in the day, nothing close to the 2010s.
yeah,
So where
yeah.
does that come from?
So I think it's so it comes. I think it comes from a few different places. I think the first thing, I think it comes from just who I am naturally.
Mm,
Since I was young, a lot of people have told me like I have an old soul. Like I'm more mature than my age. Like
yeah,
people have
yeah.
always told me that. So I think I've always had like sort of a natural attraction to things that are a little bit more before my time. Like I love old school music. I love soul music from like the 60s, 70s, 80s. I love 90s hip hop. Like I don't know what it is. Like it's just I that's what I love the most about music is that style of music. And also I like to listen to like the newer music, and sometimes I play around with the sound as well. But for me it's like those artists that came from that time, I think speak more to me and my, old soul, like people tell me all the time. And so like I said, when I really started doing music and I started studying certain artists, the artists that I would find myself, being more leaning towards to more were artists that had that kind of a sound. Even if
Yeah,
some of them were young, like at the time there was like ASAP Rocky, Joey Badass, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, like
yeah,
all those guys were young when they came out, but they sounded like
yes,
older artists. They sounded like artists from like the 90s or like the early 2000s. And then also like, when I first started listening to Nas, and Nas is my favorite hip hop artist of all time. And like I'm really big on music that has a meaning and has a purpose, and that is really trying to speak to people. And I think that Nas is one of those artists that does that well. So I studied a lot of his writing and a lot of his music, and I study Jay-Z, I study Biggie, I study like just that generation of artists. I think is who I study the most, and so my music naturally ends up sounding like that, because that's kind
yeah,
of like the sound that naturally comes to me, um and it's like like I said, I feel like it's just a part of like my natural being to being that way. So it's like if I wanted to, let's say if I was like an R&B artist, I feel like I would be the same way. Like I would be making music that sounds a little older, like music, it sounds like the mid 2000s, that sounds like the 90s. It's just like naturally what naturally is what I'm drawn to.
Yeah.
So I think that's where that comes from, like just that, being a little bit more mature than what my age or what people would expect, and just having that old soul, I think comes through in my music. It comes through in the music that I listen to and the music that I
Definitely.
make as well. So, people tell me that all the time. They're like, man, you sound like a Jay-Z or this or that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and I take it as a compliment, because it seems like that's what people are looking for as well
Yeah.
still. It seems like the need for that never went away. So it's like there's space for both to exist, the new stuff and the older stuff still, and I think people want to hear, people want to have that nostalgic feeling, like you said,
Yeah.
in a new way from a new artist, and still kind of keep that spirit of that, that hip hop, that keep that alive. So, and I think
Yeah.
that I'm just happy to be able to do that, and it just comes naturally to me. It's not something that I
Yeah.
feel like I have to force, or like that I have to like feel like I'm playing a character or something. Like
Yeah.
it's just a natural thing. Definitely.
I think that's where my question came from, because I could hear a lot of Nas in the music, and like, this reminds me of all of that.
Yeah,
That's why I
yeah,
asked what I asked, because I could hear it. I mean, as you said, I can tell that it's natural because it sounds natural as well. I think that's what
Mhm.
also makes us enjoy listening to music.
Yeah. I think so too, because I feel like there's people that try to recreate that sound, but it might not
Mm.
come as natural to
Yeah.
them. And so it's like that's not something that I ever want to try to do. Like feel like I'm forcing myself to recreate something. I just make kind of what comes natural to me, and it just so happens to be, that kind of thing. So definitely, like Nas is like number one on my list when it comes to that. I study his stuff a lot, you know. So definitely, I'm glad you picked up on that.
Yeah, no, she's very attentive. She pays a lot of attention to artists and the way that they create their music.
Mm,
Now, when you speak to a lot of the younger artists, I mean, coming from South Africa, there's a lot of artists who do music very similarly to what to other bigger artists or whatever
Mm.
other people what a lot of people are doing. And you
mm.
mentioned studying your favorite artist. When you talk about studying your favorite artist, like what goes into that whole studying thing?
So when I'm studying my favorite artists, I think that the first thing that I try to do is um, I try to keep in mind that you can never recapture a moment in time. I think that every artist that does what they do successfully is a product of a certain moment in time that they come from. So like, Nas would not have been Nas if he didn't grow up in the time and place that he grew up in,
Yeah.
so when I'm studying them, it's the same way like when I'm, I love to read like history books as well, right? So it's kind of like in the same way that I study history is I take what I can from it and apply it to myself in a way that um, is applicable to me. So not trying to recreate it or not trying to be that person, but taking from that person what I like, or taking from this song or this album what I like, and then how can I make that my own thing, or how can I apply that to what I'm trying to do. So like a lot of times when I'm listening to an artist and I'm studying them, a lot of what I'm listening for is first is like how does the music itself sound, right? Even before getting into the lyrics, or getting into all the technical things, I think that music has to sound good
Yeah.
regardless of whatever it is you're trying to do. Like the music still has to sound good, people still have to want to listen to it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I kind of study like, okay, what is this person doing that makes this song so good, or that makes this album so good, and I kind of try to pick that apart in this, and apply it, find ways to apply it to my own thing. Then, with artists like myself, I consider myself a lyricist. So,
Yeah.
then I start getting into the words, I start getting into the flow patterns, the cadences, and just trying to like sometimes it's like you're listening to a certain artist and you're like, man, how did he even
Yeah.
flow like that? What even
Yeah.
made him come up with this, come up with this line right here? So I study those artists, and then beyond the music, I watch a lot of interviews. I watch a lot of interviews from certain artists, seeing how they talk about their creative process, seeing how they talk about their music, what influences their
Yeah.
music, and things like that, and a lot of artists, say like they take inspiration from their life, they take inspiration from the things around them, and so I just kind of study their music, and also try to kind of study their mind and study their process and understand like what led up to this song, led up to this album, and what made it what it was. And like you said, like a lot of people will do that and then will try to recreate what it is that they've just
Yeah.
been studying. And I think for me, instead of trying to recreate it, take take from it the essence of it, but I don't really take the body of it. Like it's kind of like how when you're learning math, right? And it's like, when you're doing your homework, it's like you're learning how to get to the answer, but you know
Mhm.
that this same problem is not going to be on the test. So it's like
Yeah.
you don't it's like don't memorize the problem, but understand the essence of how to get
What
to
to
the
get
answer.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so now when you're taking the test, you understand how to work through this problem, even though it's not the same problem that you did earlier. So it's kind of the same way that I do with music, is like I take the essence of it and then apply it to my own,
It's good.
my own thing. So it's like I kind of try to, just kind of take those lessons and then kind of try to work through it in my own music, and do it in a way that's original, a way that's new, a way that's fresh, and so that way it's not like when people hear my music, they're like, oh, this is he's doing this song that this person did, or he's, it's like they can hear the influence, they can hear, who the people that I study are, but they still know that they still, they say this is still hype, this is
Yeah.
still his own thing, but we can tell that he's influenced by Nas, we can tell that he's influenced by Jay-Z, because the essence of it is there. So and everything, everything and everybody, like they said, there's nothing new under the sun. So you can't escape, your inspirations. Somebody's always going to be inspired by something else. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's not about copying, but just, taking the same kind of essence of it,
Mhm.
and for me, it's like the soulfulness, the depth, the intellectualism of the words, those kind of things, and applying it to that, because I think that for me it's also like I said, things that come natural to me, like naturally, I've always been told, like, people look at me as sort of like an intellectual. Like, I've always enjoyed writing, I've always enjoyed reading, I've always enjoyed,
Yeah.
trying to understand different concepts. So when I'm making music, I put that into my music, so it's like I love to write, and so naturally not writing just comes naturally to me. I enjoy, putting things that have meaning in my music, things like that. So it's just about just capturing the essence of those things that I see in other artists, and then applying it to things that come naturally to me as well, and then making my own out of it. So it's kind of hard to explain in
Yeah.
concrete terms because it's so abstract,
Yeah.
like the way that I approach it. But that's kind of like the best way I can put it into words.
Yeah. No, but we got it. We totally got
Yeah.
it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
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 Just
So
for me, just to round it off. Now, I just want, so that's the process that you go through, or
hmm
to write all your music. So that's what you were going through as well when you were writing or rapping and making the Golden Child 3. Is that what you were looking at? Is that this mental space that you were in as well?
Yeah, it was. It's like, so that song. What's interesting about that one is, I had I had written the lyrics for that song like a year or two before I recorded it. I didn't have a beat for it. I was trying to find like the perfect beat. Like sometimes it's like there's certain times where I'll write some lyrics, or like I'll make a certain beat, and it's like, but it's like it's one of those things where it's like this thing can only go with this certain type of thing. So
Yeah.
it's like I'm searching for something that complements it perfectly. So it took a while for me to finally I got a beat from one of my producers, Soul Chemist. He's the one who produced the instrumental for that song. But I kind of already like I had envisioned the kind of the essence that I was going for with the song, and so it's like the beat had to match perfectly with what I was putting in there, and so kind of like the essence of like the Golden Child, the Golden Child 3 is just kind of just kind of like is kind of like just kind of talking about myself and like just like the golden child, like just kind of talking about like how I feel like I'm the golden child of hip
Yeah.
hop, and I'm trying to be the next the next big thing and like that, but it had to have some like soulfulness to it, and that beat was
Yeah.
so soulful. It just matched perfectly. So yeah, definitely like in that same the same mindset where it was just capturing the essence of something, and then trying to bring it to life through just putting the song together in a certain way. So yeah, so it was definitely that same type of thing.
Nice.
Let us take it back, or let's just move forward to your music. There's quite a few projects that you've released, that you've worked on. I think the first project might have been in 2018 or 2019, if I'm not mistaken. But first, tell us about the artwork, because I can tell that a lot of work goes into that. Take us through some of them, starting with maybe Quiet Storm, because I see there that there's dove, the lightning, the crown, and your face. Please walk us through that artwork.
Yeah, so my process for artwork is usually again it's very like it's a very abstract type of process. I kind of listen to the music and try to imagine like what do I picture when I'm listening to this music, or what do I picture when I come up with a title, like what is the perfect thing that captures this title. So like for Quiet Storm, um so where that title came from was one of my mentors. One day we were having a conversation, and he was like, he described me as like a quiet storm.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people would tell me like I'm a very quiet person, but like when I'm there, I know how to make my presence, felt. Like I'm there. When I'm doing my thing, people know like he's here. This is him. This is what he does. So that's I kind of took that title and kind of adopted it, and also just Quiet Storm, just kind of like one of those things where it's like a silent but deadly. It's like
Yeah.
you don't have to make a lot of noise if you know that
Mm.
when you're there you're gonna do what you need to do. So it's like you know um they say it's always the quiet ones you got to watch out for.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I just kind of took all those ideas, like you said, my face there, of course, because it's kind of like what I feel describes me, and then kind of like the storm effect, to describe the storm, and just kind of like it kind of like blurs. You see like the bottom half of my face, and then the top half is where you see like the storm, you see the lightning. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like my mind, goes on in my mind, that the storm that's in my mind, what's brewing up there. um and I think that cover also had a dove,
Yeah.
like a white dove on it. Man, so the dove usually like has different meanings, and different symbolism across literature. One of the meanings that it has is like being a messenger.
Yeah.
And so I kind of adopted that meaning, for the dove, and kind of just like just carrying a message. Like I said, because I like to put things in my music that also have
Mm.
meaning, that have messages. I like to something that speaks to people. So that's on there to kind of represent that, and then the crown, just always remind myself like what my goal is, and it's to be king of the hip hop game, the rap game, this music thing. So it's like that's kind of there as well. So it all just kind of represents everything that I felt that represents me and what I'm going for, and also represents, you know, what's in the music, what's in the album, or in the project. And, you know, so it just kind of speaks to all of that at once, and it carries all those meanings, you know, within that album. So that's kind of how I went about, you know, creating the album cover art, and, you know, kind of the meanings that it had, and everything like that. So that's kind of like the explanation behind that one.
So while we're still on your music and the ideas behind it and everything you go through to put the music together, the artwork together,
Mhm.
your latest album, Talk to Me Nice, right? Please tell us about it.
Yeah. So Talk to Me Nice, that was an album. So as soon as I had put out Quiet Storm, so one thing about me, once I put out music, like the next idea comes to me like just like that. Like I'm already thinking about what the next. So it's like I always tell people like I'm always thinking like at least like 3 or 4 albums ahead. So so when I was done with Quiet Storm, so Talk to Me Nice is, you know, what I kind of call like my actual debut album. So it's kind of the one that I really crafted as a cohesive album, and something that, you know, once I put it out, I wanted to put it out as, you know, this is my you know, my introduction into the game. So I had that title, and I had, From Beginning to End and To New Beginnings. Those were, the 2 titles that I had for what my next thing was going to be. So it was all just going to depend at that point on kind of the trajectory that the music took. And so what ended up happening was that because I did the EP, which was kind of like a split, you know, section of the album, you know, I used that From Beginning to End and To New Beginnings name for the EP, and then I kept Talk to Me Nice for the album. And so Talk to Me Nice, what that kind of means is a few different things. You know, it's one, just kind of it being my debut album is like, you know, I wanted to
Yeah.
have a strong name for it. And so it was like Talk to Me Nice, like, you know, letting people know like I'm not playing when it comes to this, you know, when it comes to this rap thing. Like I really do it, you know, like I really
Yeah.
take it seriously. And so it's like letting people know like I'm coming in strong. I'm coming for everybody, you know. It's not going to be anything that, you know, I'm just gonna do it halfway and, you know, just put in a half effort. Like I'm putting my entire, you know, my entire being into it. Um, and then along the way, it kind of adopted another meaning because of I went through a situation with a record label, that was very tumultuous, and, you know, they were just really just, you know, trying to do some shady things. And so like I kind of addressed it on the album as well. You know, on the first song, I talked about it. I talked about it a little bit. So it was also kind of like a statement to them, like you can't stop me from doing what I do, you know, because they were trying to take me to court, and you know, going to try to say like, you know, I won't be able to ever do music again, and this and the third. And it's like, you know, this is my passion. This is what I love to do, and I'm not gonna let
Yeah.
anybody stop me from doing that. So it's kind of like a message to them, and, you know, just anybody who's trying to get in my way, like, you know, understand, you know, how hard I'm going to go for this, you know, and I'm never gonna let anybody stop me from doing what I love to do, you know. So it's like along the way with that too, like it kind of adopted that meaning and that message, you know, just like I'm always gonna do what I want to do. I'm always gonna be the
Yeah.
person that I want to be, like, you know, just being unstoppable, just um, you know, just being a force, you know, whenever I move, like, you know, just understand like I'm coming full force. So it was just a lot of it. It was just taking all those experiences and all those meanings and putting it into that album. And, you know, it's really like almost like a braggadocious, like, you know, just really like popping my collar, talking my shit
Yeah.
type of, you know, type of title and type of album. So I wanted to put that energy behind it, you know, from the lyrics to the production to, you know, even the album cover. So how I decided on the album cover, I had been thinking for a long, long time, like, okay, what is the album cover going to be? Like it has to be something dope. So one day I was watching the movie Scarface, and it got to this scene where he was sitting at his table in his mansion,
Mm.
and like it's just like a really cool looking scene. And I was like, what if I took that scene and had it painted, but with my face, like I'm the one sitting, at that table. And like even just like his, the attitude of, of Scarface and his the way he carried on, it was like, like you couldn't stop him if he wanted to do something. Like he was gonna do it regardless of the outcome or regardless of whatever anybody told him. So it's like he was in his mind, he's just that guy. So it's like just kind of I took that and I was like, that's kind of like a perfect representation of like how I feel on this album. Like I feel like Scarface, like, so that's how I decided on the album cover. And so I was able to make that happen, and I had someone paint that album cover for me. And so it just came out really perfect. And so I was just happy with it. So that was really like the entire process of going from the concept of the album to doing the album cover. I think the album cover came like towards the end of the of me doing the album. Once I really got a good idea of how the album feels and what it sounds like. Yeah, so I was able to really put that on there and make it happen. So that was like the whole process going through that, putting that together.
Yeah, and I think that album cover is quite iconic. It's going to catch on at some point. Yeah, and I also picked up on that Scarface thing. Yeah, I also picked up on that Scarface thing because Scarface is one of my favorite movies of all time. Just Scarface, Godfather, those kind of movies. Yeah, they're my favorite.
Yeah.
So, Hype, what can we expect from you this year?
So this year, we're still promoting the album, and I'm working on doing, but I'm also working on doing a deluxe version of the album. So
Nice.
After the album came out, a lot of people reached out to me, and they wanted to work, they wanted to do some music, and people were like they wanted more. People, the reception of the album has been spectacular so far. And so I'm working on some more music that's going to be for future projects, but there's some more things that I kind of want to add on to the album and do a deluxe release. People wanted vinyls and things like that, so told them I'm gonna save that for the deluxe. So later on this year there'll be a deluxe release of the album, and then as well as videos are gonna start rolling out. And then other than that, I've just, been networking with people, and so hopefully I'll get the chance to, perform, be able to perform my music this year, if not next year. And other than that, I mean, outside of the album, I've, just been working on other things with the music. Recently got a song placement on a TV show. And things like that. So just kind of find other areas in which I can put my music in and make some use of it and make some good money. So yeah, just working on a lot of different opportunities and trying to make things happen. So definitely there'll be more music coming, music videos, and then from there, then I'll probably just kind of go into another album and start working on another fresh new album, that'll maybe come out next year or a little bit after that. So definitely can expect some more stuff coming this year.
One thing from you working with all these people who reached out to you, right? Those who have and those who haven't. You're working on this new deluxe album, right? Who are you hoping to work with? Who would you like to feature? You still want to work with everything in you?
Man, so it's actually an interesting question because there were so many people that I was trying to get on the on the original release of the album, that things just didn't work out the way that they were supposed to. But I think that as far as the people that I want to work with, there's a lot of people that I'm working with now, or people that I've been able to connect with through like a mutual person that we know, or a lot of them are people that I know personally that are very talented and very creative, and that's something I like to do. I feel like for me, personally, the spirit of collaboration breeds the best music. It gives the best outcome. When I can, even if it's just bouncing ideas with somebody else, or
Yeah.
producing a track with somebody else, I think that it always brings about the best outcome. Because I feel like music is something to be shared, and so I think that it's always good when music is created in a shared experience. But as far as people that I want to work with, man, I think I have more so not short term, as far as like the deluxe or maybe like my next album, but I think long term over the course of my career, like I would definitely love to work with, somebody like Kendrick Lamar. I would definitely love to work with somebody like a Nas.
Yeah.
And definitely like people that I look at as like my idols or my favorite rappers. Over the course of my career, I would love to get an opportunity to work with them. But right now, I think that the people that I'm working with are very talented people, people that I've always wanted to work with. Some of my friends who do music and other people that I've been connected with.
Yeah.
So just kind of doing that and just keeping this the spirit of collaboration. And I think eventually one day there'll be a hype and Nas track that'll come out, and
Yeah.
I'll feel very accomplished when the day comes. But but yeah, it's happening, man. The people that I want to work with, I think I'm working with, and I think that the people that I want to work with, I think it's gonna happen too. There's
Yeah.
there's been a lot of people that have reached out to me and told me like, you might not know, but such and such is they're talking about you. They're talking about your music. I'm like, okay, just everything happens in time. So I'm
Yeah.
just being patient and not trying to rush anything so far.
Rush the
But I
process.
was
Yeah.
I was yeah, I was really happy when I got to work with Elzai. He was on Let It Breathe. That was
Yeah.
a really big deal for me because
Yeah.
he just gave me so much praise and just told me how much of a fan he was of my work. And just he was really excited to work with me. So I was happy that we're able to make that happen.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And something that we always say is that every artist that we have on this podcast are artists that we believe in, and we believe in your dreams. We believe that
Yeah.
one day, I mean, if Nas is able to work with Hit Boy, we definitely know that one day he's going to work with Hype.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah,
day is
Definitely.
going to come. Yeah, that day is definitely going to come. Z, I don't
yeah,
know if
man,
you
I
have.
can't wait.
Yeah, yeah, we're also looking forward to it. Also looking forward to it.
Definitely.
Yeah, Z, I don't know if you've got anything else.
Now that's all from me, man. That's all I wanted to find out. I feel like everything I wanted to find out has been answered
Yeah,
above and beyond. So I'm happy.
uh,
Thank you. I'm happy. I'm happy as
yeah,
well.
yeah. And have any final words?
Man, I just want to thank you guys as always for having me on, and I look forward to coming back in the future. When more stuff
Yeah.
comes out, and whenever you guys want to have me, I'm happy to be here. And I just want to thank everybody who's been listening. I think that this album so far has gotten the reception that I was looking for it to get, and I think that with time, more people are gonna come to this album, and my goal is for it to be cemented as a classic
Yeah.
for people. I want people to look at it in that way. So definitely looking forward to people growing with the album and just growing with me over the course of my career and doing more music. And like I said, man, I'm just very happy, very thankful. Whenever I get the opportunity to sit and speak with you guys or with any of the
Yeah.
platform, and people that, like you said, believe in me, it means a lot.
Yeah. Hi, thank you very much, man. It's
Thank
been a
you so
great time.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a great time, and we're looking forward to hearing more from you. We know that you've got a
Definitely.
lot of, yeah, you've got a bright future ahead of you. You've got
Yeah.
Thank you.
a great career ahead of you. So we are looking forward to what you have in store for us. But for tonight, that is all from us, the Oracles. Until next week, peace.
Peace.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.